Okay, good afternoon. Mayor Carlson here, and Chair Peterson is not able to be here, and neither is Vice Chair Campbell, so you guys are stuck with me again. So I'm going to open the Diversion Board of Authority February 24th, 2021 meeting, and open the meeting. And could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Dr. Mahoney. Here. Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Mayor Carlson.
Here.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Here.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Here.
Mr. Emminger.
Here.
Mrs. Sherling. Mr. Steen.
Here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Salderwald.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Don. And moving on to number 2, could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the January 27th, 2022 diversion meeting?
Also moves. Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved. Could I get a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So move.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments on the agenda items? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the order of the agenda has been approved. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve A through G?
So moved.
Of the consent agenda? Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Emminger.
Aye.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
Mr. Salderwald.
Aye.
That is everyone.
Thank you, Don. All right, moving on to our regular agenda then, and I will turn the Executive Director report over to Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor Carlson, and rest of the board. Have a number of things that happened this last month. We've been really busy at the authority. I think I'll start first with some of the media highlights. What I don't have up there is about 3 or 4 talk radio appearances that both Jody Smith and I had taken on this last month. Most of those were in the board bulletin that I sent out this morning, but they were really related to questions about the flowage easements and property acquisitions. I think most of the activity in the media right now is surrounding our robust effort to get those flowage easements out to the property owners and communicate effectively with them. We will be having a number of in-house or open house meetings coming up in the next few weeks to talk about the flowage easements with landowners. And certainly we'll get those on the board members' calendars as well if you would choose to attend those. But I think they're going to be a great opportunity to explain the process of the flowage easements, how they were calculated, and answer any questions that the landowners have. But that's going to be a huge effort over the course of the next few months as we work through over 400 letters and easements that are going out. So a lot of coordination work with our land agents and our land team. So they're going to be really busy over the course of the next few months. And we no doubt expect some additional appearances on radio, talk radio, and interviews related to how we're going through that process. So I feel extremely comfortable that we are going to be very open and proactive in our communication as we work through these. And we'll report back next month on how that is progressing. We also did additional risk workshops. These were full day workshops that really focused on where our contingency should be related to the risks that we have. So basically we're resetting the financial plan, and this was a part of that reset. We did complete those, and so we are now in the process of putting those into our financial plan and assessing where our contingency should be. I'll say it's probably pretty close to where we currently are, but we do hope within the next few months to engage in the board with that discussion of the updated financial plan and the updated cost estimate. I think another significant thing related to the settlement agreement was the approval of the cemetery protection plan. So we do have an internal group that has been addressing each one of the cemeteries in the upstream mitigation area. We are making pretty significant progress with those cemetery boards in identifying mitigative items to implement within those cemeteries. So there's been a lot of work that's gone into that and a lot of great progress. So I just wanted to make a special note there. And then, of course, our P3 team has been actively working with Red River Valley Alliance, continued coordination calls daily on activities related to NTP1, Notice to Proceed 1. And the significance of reaching Notice to Proceed 1 is really once we reach that, we now move into the design and the review phase. And so there's going to be an immense amount of activity. We anticipate reaching NTP1 this week, by the end of the week. And so once that occurs, we're going to start really getting into that design review phase and coordination with the Office of the State Engineer and the Minnesota DNR on what those specific designs are going to look like. And then we also have been engaging with the Corps of Engineers quite extensively this last month, obviously with the announcement of the $437 million from the federal government. That may lead to some schedule changes that we need to look at with the Corps of Engineers. And so we've been having a number of meetings to look at the impact of bringing those dollars forward and how we could adjust and make the most efficient use of those dollars. And so there'll be more to come on that, certainly in the next few months. I also wanted to spend a little bit of time just acknowledging the staff and the member entity staff that have been working for the last few years on third-party MOUs and agreements. What you see before you is a list of all of the approved MOUs. And you can see it's pretty extensive. And each one of those MOUs required extensive coordination with the specific entity noted on there. And I think sometimes these have continued to be coming through the boards and being approved. But I think we lose sight over the immense amount of work that's gone into these. So I would just like to maybe give a special thanks to the board and also to all of the staff, consultants, and member entity staff that have been working over the last few years, because this is really monumental to have all of these in place at this point in order to get these utilities relocated in efficient fashion for proposed construction this summer. We still have a few left to go. These are the ones that are yet to be approved but are in the works. A majority of the ones on the DCAI side are getting pretty close to the finish line. You'll see a number of those come before the board next month. But we're getting close to the end on the channel side, and we still have a few left to work out on the southern embankment and the upstream mitigation area. So just wanted to give a brief update on where we're at with the status of those third-party MOUs. So Mayor Carlson, that is all I have for my report, and certainly open for any questions.
Yeah. Well, it certainly seems like a lot has happened in the last month or so. Any questions or comments from the board members? I guess I'm not sitting at the computer. I'm not sure if there's anybody with their hands up or not. I don't see anyone, so, all right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Paulson.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 5, General Counsel update. Mr. Shockley, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a brief update today regarding the legacy bond proceeds. The board will recall that the state of North Dakota, during the last legislative session, had authorized the North Dakota Public Finance Authority, along with Bank of North Dakota, to issue bonds out of the legacy fund earnings to fund part of the diversion portion that is being funded by the state of North Dakota. The state went ahead and issued the first tranche of bonds, and we're working through the mechanics of the process of how to distribute those bond proceeds from the state to the diversion authority. And I've had several conversations with their staff regarding the level of detail that they'd like in the reports submitted to them. And I'm happy to report that their response back to us has been that we can submit a summary of the invoices paid, to whom they were paid for, the amount, and when they were paid. And then if there's any specific source that was allocated that the funds came out of, send that to their trustee, and then the trustee would remit payment to us. So I think we have a fairly streamlined process in place, and we'd reviewed it internally with our team, and we'll be sending out the confirmation letters next week. Certainly answer any questions, but it'll help eliminate some of the administrative burden rather than sending the entirety of every invoice every month to North Dakota PFA.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Any questions or comments? Mayor Mahoney.
John, excellent work. Thank you for solving that, because that sounded like it would kind of slow things down, and we're going to keep moving forward. Also like to thank the Bank of North Dakota working with you as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone online or on the phone? All right. Seeing none, I will move on to Army Corps of Engineers project update and safety presentation. And Ms. Williams, I will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Carlson and board members. I'm pleased to give the monthly update for the Corps in February here. 1 through 4, the items under construction, nothing new to report there, as they're still basically in winter shutdown. Number 5, Red River structure, is reported last month. We're still on schedule to make a contract award by the end of March. Drain 27, that's out for bids. Bids are due the 1st of March, so pretty quick coming up here. There was a on-site pre-bid visit a couple of weeks ago, and at the last board meeting, Commissioner Peterson asked how much interest we're getting on our projects. And at this pre-site visit, there was 4 companies that showed up for the site visit. So we're getting, some nice interest on the projects we are putting out for bids. Number 7, Drayton Dam, that's continues to be a bit delayed. We have yet to get, I think it's a sovereign lands permit from the state of North Dakota, and that's in the works. So we don't anticipate that this will impact our contract very much yet. So hopefully by next month, we're reporting that that's out on the street for bids as well. Number 8, SC2A, nothing new to report there. Still on schedule to put that out for bids in March. Number 9, those items are all on schedule too. All of our designs are still on schedule as reported last month. And then our additional activities, lots going on in 22. Forest culture mitigation, geomorphology, emergency action planning, and the water control manual. And I believe we're going to talk a little bit about safety now. Mr. Paulson and Mr. Shockley asked that we present on the Corps safety program at this month's board meeting. And we prepared this one-pager, and this will be available on fmdiversion.gov, and I'm sure available to the board members to read through the whole thing if you would like. But of course, for all of us, safety is job one. And you can see at the top there, Colonel Jansen's statement on safety, challenging everyone to make safety a part of the daily routine. Each of us make the decision to act, accept responsibility, commit to safety, take personal initiative. Every time General Spellman has come on site, he has also stressed safety, and it's in his mission statement as well. So you can see this is our Safety and Health Requirements Manual, EM 385-1-1. This applies to everything the Corps does, whether you're working in the office or you're managing our construction projects or you're building our construction. The contract requirements, when a construction contractor is working for us, accident prevention plan, activity hazard analyses. They have to have a site safety and health officer or a representative on site at all times. And that person has to have a minimum of 5 years of experience. The safety procedures at the top, the contractors, they have daily meetings, weekly meetings, monthly meetings. And each definable feature of work has to have a plan for it. So whether you're building a 40-foot wall, that's got to have its own analysis, or you're building the inspection trench under the dam or the levee, that is a separate item that has to have a specific plan. Our role in safety on construction sites, very important. We follow the EM, make sure that the contractor is following the accident prevention plan that they have developed. Daily observations, definitely a big part of what our construction people do out on site every day. And then moving on to the next page, there are processes for reporting incidents, and that's outlined on the left, upper left-hand section of this. And you can, of course, read that at your leisure. Unsafe actions reporting, it's up to everybody to report something, whether you're the site safety health officer, whether you are a Corps of Engineers person, whether you're visiting the site. It's up to all of us to report unsafe activities. At the bottom, every construction site requires project signage that talks about when the project started, the date since the last time accident, which is hopefully blank, and total lost time injuries, which is, of course, everybody strives for 0. Personal protective equipment is outlined on the upper right. When you visit the site, you have to check in with both our construction office and the contractor's office, get a site safety briefing, be escorted, and wear the proper protective equipment when you're on site. We have hired a specific person for the Fargo-Moorhead project to monitor safety, and her name's Robin. And if you're ever out on site, you're going to see Robin out there. Safety's job one for all of us. And I hope that this briefing has been beneficial. With that, are there any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Williams?
Terry, Roger. The safety equipment, will that be available, or do we have to bring our own?
It depends on how many people are there. We try to have extra hard hats and eye protection and vests on site. But when there's tour buses full of folks, it's hard to keep up with all of that. And anybody that's been on site knows that there have been times where we've been able to just make sure the visitors are all sectioned off and in one place. And then maybe some of this PPE stuff can be a little bit relaxed, like the work boots. So if you have your own, bring it. If you don't, we'll try to set you up. Over.
All right, thanks.
Yes, and I can attest to the fact that when we have smaller groups, that they have provided all of those and instruct us the types of boots to wear and pants and all that kind of thing. So I know that is something that you guys do take at utmost importance. Any other, Mayor Dartis?
I would ask Mr. Paulson to be sure and get this specific document to Mr. Commissioner Strand. He was the one that made it the request last month. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. And hopefully winter will go away soon, almost done with February, so hopefully in March we'll see this weather get warmer and the ice starting to melt, and then project can get up and running again. Turning it over to Roger and Amy for the public outreach update.
Thank you. Executive Director Joel did a nice job of kind of explaining a lot of the things that they've been doing in the office. And actually, I will call on Joel to go ahead and give an update.
Thanks, Commissioner Olson. So I kind of did a highlight for the public outreach group of all of the different things that had been going on this last month, and I did highlight some of those in my report. But you can see, I think all the board members were received an email from me with the Fargo Forum link. Very well written article about Senator Hoven and Senator Klobuchar's work to bring the $437 million or the full federal funding to the program. And maybe we want to move to the next page here. And then I highlighted a number of different things that we're coming up to for this next month. We are listed with an international awards organization, IH Global. It's basically our project and a project in Maryland that are competing for the best P3 project of the year. So that awards is March 13th, and so hopefully we can see where we land as far as the P3 deal that we have. The board will also recognize that last month we also received an award from Project Finance International as well for P3 deal of the year in the Americas. So there's no doubt that this program is being recognized nationally and internationally for the innovation and the uniqueness of this split delivery public-private partnership. And it's nice to see that all of this hard work is being acknowledged by industry leaders for our program. Also doing a number of class presentations at NDSU. They've been reaching out to us to see if either Chris and I can do some presentations for the students and the faculty. And then I think of probably more importance here locally is the Water Topics Overview Committee update that I'll be giving on March 22nd to the North Dakota Legislature. And they've specifically asked to get a briefing on the funding, and they want to hear about the federal funding and where we're going with construction. And then we will be doing a joint presentation with the Corps of Engineers and the Red River Valley Alliance at the P3 conference in April 7th or 8th. And Martin, John, and I will be attending that with Aaron Schneider from the Corps and then local representatives from Red River Valley Alliance as well. And maybe next page. And then these are just a lot of things that are in progress. I hope the board is liking the message maps that are coming with the board bulletins. I think that's going very well. It's providing the board members information up to date on what's happening, and then also talking points and any sort of action items that the board needs to be aware of. I've also been working pretty closely with Amy on social media and media releases that'll just kind of be going out regularly to engage a broader audience and share information about what's going on with the program. So I think as we move into 2022, we've really worked to strengthen our communications and our public outreach. In the last few meetings with the Public Outreach Committee has been great to just be able to coordinate that and get their buy-in on where we're going with our media and outreach for 22. So.
Thanks, Joel.
All right, any questions or comments from other members? All right, thank you, Mr. Paulson, and thank you, Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Sherling and Commissioner Campbell are not present today, and they have asked that I turn over the land management updates to Jody and Eric.
Hi, good afternoon. A few things here that we can run through for you on the lands program updates. As you're familiar, we have the status report in your packet. Paul, I believe, is scrolling to the right slide here. As usual, just like to point out a few things on this map. We've acquired over 750 parcels to date, if you include both those in the green category as well as some that are acquired via an eminent domain action. I would like to also report that we do have a few of those eminent domain actions that have been agreed to settlements, but they haven't quite worked themselves through all the process and paperwork yet. So I do expect that number to go down here shortly. So that's good news. In a minute, we'll talk a bit about flowage easements. I do expect that over the next month and moving forward, we will have a new map in this report that focuses on the upstream mitigation area, where we'll zoom in on all the orange parcels on the bottom, so you can see a little bit closer what's happening there. The rest of the report just drills into more details in each specific section. I think you're all probably somewhat familiar with this report, so I'd maybe stand for questions if you have any, otherwise you can move on.
All right, are there any questions or comments? Okay, see none. Feel
Okay.
free to move on.
Next thing in your packet is a flowage easement appraisal process presentation. So Jody and I have been tag teaming this 3 times already. And I think Jody wasn't able to make it here today, so I'll try to work our way through this. Yeah, go ahead to that slide, that's good. So this slide here gives you a little bit of a flavor about the history of how we've been working on flowage easements. As you might recall, this isn't something that came about just recently. We've started working on flowage easements back in 2018. We hired Crown Appraisals to do a phase 1 study. It was really a market-based research effort. And then in 2020, we hired NDSU to update an ag risk study where they looked at the risks of delayed planting because of the project operations. We did a phase 1B study where Crown gathered more research information and was getting prepared to apply that to the specific parcels impacted by the project. We did receive the Clomer approval from FEMA in late 2020, hired Crown again in early 21 to begin the phase 2 study. We had a series of informational meetings with property owners. Crown was out meeting with property owners themselves. Ultimately, they produced the appraisal reports late last year, and John Albrecht, the review appraiser, had reviewed those early this year. And both this morning and this afternoon, the Cass County Joint Board and the MCC-JPA Board did approve the appraised values as an offer, and so appraisal offers will be going out the door shortly. The next slide just gives a little bit of history about phase 1 and phase 2 and the relation. The summary here is basically that phase 1 was a market-based research study. Phase 2 then applied that research to the specific parcels and specific project data that we have for this project. And so it's a well-founded out appraisal process, and we were happy with their findings. The next slide here summarizes the approach that the appraiser took as they researched market data. They really concluded that there were 2 property rights that were going to be impacted by the flowage easement. The first one was a loss of development rights, and the second one was related to the increased flood risk that the project would bring. And so collectively, those 2 items needed to be valued and concluded and used to conclude the value of the flowage easement. If you want to go to the next slide, that's good. So in applying those findings, again, the appraiser found for the loss of development rights that those ranged between 8 and 10% of farmland value. And again, there's 4 different mitigation zones, and so the value changed amongst those zones. And then the increased flood risk, the appraiser concluded that the range varied between 7 and 30%, and of course that depends on flood risk, flood frequency, depth and duration, whether there's existing flooding or not. And so the combination of those 2 ranged from 14 to about 40% as the total diminution of value, and that would be a percentage of ag land value, farmland value. I stress farmland value there because we know there's some areas in the upstream mitigation area that are considered transitional lands. They're not just bare farmland. Transitional land is considered land that has some value above and beyond traditional farmland values, and it's transitioning from a use of farmland to some type of urban development. And so in those situations, the appraiser has concluded that we also need to compensate for the change of use. And so whether it's transitional land, we need to pay for that change down to farmland and then apply the percentages that we talked about on previous slide. So applying these findings to a transitional land situation, hypothetically, if we do the transitional land value was $2,500 per acre and farmland was $1,000 per acre, we first have to pay the $1,500 for loss in value due to change of use. And then over on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see that $1,000 would be the farmland value, and those 2 percentages resulting in a flowage easement of $350. The total devaluation in this example would be $1,500 plus $350 for a total of $1,850 per acre. the bottom of the slide gives some values and it shows you the math and maybe a more real-world application. The next couple of slides give a high-level overview of the actual appraisal report. So each appraisal report is roughly 15 pages, but there's about 4 pages of meat, and then there's a handful of maps, and then some credential information that the appraisers are required to include. So these few slides here talk about the meat of the appraisals. On page 2, there's a breakdown of acres, so you can see the parcel acre breakdown, and then also the breakdown of acres for each mitigation zone. And then on the next slide, we highlight page 3 and page 4 of the appraisal report. In this example, on the top left of the slide, you see that there's a transitional value, reconciled current value of $671,000. And if this was just farmland, the appraiser concluded the value would be $550,000. So again, first we have to pay the change of use payment, and then we would apply those 2 percentages to result in a total flowage easement offer of $313,500. The page 4 is in the lower right-hand corner. You can see that that number is repeated along with the signatures from the appraisers. So it gives you a little flavor of what each appraisal report includes. This next slide just talks briefly about next steps. So again, the boards did approve these appraised values. There were 361 appraisals approved today, 248 of those in North Dakota and 113 in Minnesota. So the land agent teams are working feverishly to get offer letters prepared and sent out the door. Those offers will be going out early next week. Land agents will be working to meet with the property owners. There is an invitation to an open house, a series of open house meetings in the middle of March. So those meetings are the 14th, 15th, and 16th in North Dakota, and then the 21st and 22nd in Minnesota. And so the packet that is being mailed out to the property owners includes their appraisal report, includes an offer letter, it includes an invitation to these open house meetings, some other facts and figures, information that we expect the property owners will be interested in seeing. And then negotiations will really start in earnest in April after those meetings, and we're looking forward to seeing the hopefully successful negotiations throughout the remainder of the year. So anyway, that's a lot of info, but I'll stand if you have any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, if you want to just move on to the land exchange recommendation letter.
It appears we've worn you out. The next thing in the packet is a land exchange letter. So this is a letter written from the Moorhead-Clay County JPA related to a land exchange for a piece of property that is needed for the project. Paul, maybe if you want to go to the map, it might be helpful to just highlight a few things here. So the map shows that we will be acquiring the green shaded parcels, OAN 249, and a portion of OAN 257 in exchange for OAN 1790. 1790 is a parcel that was purchased several years ago. In fact, it was in 2016 when it was impacted by Plan A and no longer impacted by the project now. And so it's considered a piece of land that property owners have expressed interest in. And so through this land exchange, we would be obtaining all the rights necessary for the project on the 2 parcels owned by Mr. Bliley in exchange for the parcel that we would be exchanging to him. This came out, and as you saw in the letter, from a long and good-spirited discussion at the MCC-JPA last month. This was a parcel where we were in eminent domain with the property owner. And of course, our preference is to not be in eminent domain. And so as we continued negotiating with the property owner and their legal counsel, out of those discussions came forward a proposal. Originally, he preferred to purchase the entire quarter section of 1790, that was a full quarter section. And through, again, ongoing debates and discussion at the board level in executive session last month, the board had counteroffered back to offer half of that quarter section in exchange for what we need on his property. Recognize that we did have currently 1 existing eminent domain action, and because of the way the designs are progressing, If we weren't going to reach a voluntary agreement on that parcel, it was likely we would have had multiple eminent domain cases with a single property owner, which was a situation we obviously wanted to avoid. And so the MCCJPA approved this land exchange contingent on approval by the Diversion Board of Authority. The Diversion Board of Authority does need to approve any land exchanges as one of the provisions of the JPA. And so that's why the letter is in front of you, and we would look for your.
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
Just want to say it's great work by Kevin Campbell and your team to do this. I think this, Blyleys have been talking to us for several years, and I think this is a great outcome of those discussions. So good work, Eric, and the team as well. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, any other further questions or comments? Anyone online or on the phone? Okay, this is a roll call vote, so if I get a roll call, please, Don.
Dr. Mahoney,
Aye.
Mayor Dardis,
Yes.
Mayor Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson,
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mr. Ebinger,
Aye.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mr. Salzwald.
Aye.
That's everyone.
Thank you, Don. All right, thank you so much, Eric. All right, moving on to number 9, finance update, and I will turn it over to you, Mayor Dardis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Finance Committee met yesterday, had a number of reports that came forward. We have $101 million, $139,233 is our net position in the bank, so that's positive news. There was some discussion around what Mr. Dodds presented today, and there's been discussion with staff, Mr. Paul and Joel Martin, and I imagine Chris has also been involved in it, but the flowage easement appraisal process, the adjustment about the transitional land, and will have a potential effect on our 2022 budget as passed, and so there may be an amendment coming. We've all kind of tried our hand at trying to calculate what that dollar amount might be, and everybody's playing their cards pretty close to the vest. Nobody's given up their number. I've got a number, but I don't think they want me to say it. So, so with that, we had a great meeting. I'd also like to call to the attention on one of the items that was in front of the Finance Committee was the work done in Horace with CHS and the railroad and all of that. The work was exceptional to bring Burlington Northern and CHS and all of those players together. Mr. Chris Bacagard played a absolute key role in making that happen. Also Peggy was involved, and obviously Mr. Shockley and Katie from his office. It's exceptional work. It really truly is. If you take a look at what we were going to have to pay for the bridge, if we didn't negotiate this out versus what we're going to have a net number, it's a very, very positive. So kudos to all of that group of people that engaged to that. They saved the taxpayers a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dardis. And I concur with everything you said. Great job. All right, any questions or comments for Mayor Dardis? All right, moving on to if there's any other business. Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
Second? All right, a motion and a second. Next meeting is scheduled for March 24th, 2022. Have a good afternoon, everyone.